The Hot Wheels collecting hobby is something that could be with you your entire life. Think about that. You might live 80 years, 90 years, 100 years on this earth, and collecting die-cast cars might be a part of it for your entire being on this earth. In life, we have different stages, from being a child, to being a young adult, to being a parent, to being retired, to being older and being on our deathbeds, right? And Hot Wheels collecting and die-cast collecting is no different than that. So today, we're gonna go through the entire typical collecting life cycle of a Hot Wheels or a die-cast collector. We'll see what encompasses each phase of a collector's life. What do they do during these phases? How long can these phases last? And what kind of different paths do they take? I've been in this hobby for 25 years, and I've been a part of most of these different parts of the collector life cycle. So I'll definitely be relaying back to you guys, my experiences going through all these different phases myself. A few things, certainly leave down in the comment section below, what stage of the collector life cycle are you currently in? And what are your experiences being at some of these various different arcs of a collector's life, and what's going to be the future for you in this hobby? What do you think is going to be happening? I'd love to know in the comment section below. Certainly like and subscribe, and also join the Discord if you haven't already. A link will be down below if you want to engage with the community a bit more and other subscribers of this channel. So let's go ahead and get into this. Almost every single boy especially is going to have some die-cast cars gifted to them as a kid. For me, my first cars came in before I was even 2 years old. So for a lot of you guys, I'm sure that you guys have gotten your first die-cast cars probably between the ages of 2 to 5 years old. And really, it was a matter of how would you gravitate towards those cars. Some kids aren't going to be picking them up at all. They're not going to be interested in them. They're not going to play with them barely at all, right? They're going to be gravitating towards other toys or other hobbies or other interests of theirs. But for the people that do have an interest in the die-cast cars, certainly, you'll be just enjoying them as a kid, right? The cars in your collection will be the ones likely just gifted to you on birthdays, as surprise gifts, Christmas, etc. You might also have some Hot Wheels play sets, some track sets, some things like that you can, play with your cars on. You're using your imagination and making these amazing cities and amazing lore, right, for your Hot Wheels cars. You're racing them, you're creating car shows, you're making stories out of them. It's the best time ever, right? And you kind of have a collection that's kind of like a hodgepodge of different cars that you just acquired over time, right? There's no real continuity between all these cars. It's literally just kind of what you get. You might have cars that are different scales that are interacting and racing with one another. You have cars that look totally different. You've got cars from all different types of brands, right? Some cars are going to be hand-me-down. Some cars are going to be brand new. It really is just, whatever you can get your hands on, you're going to be playing with. I know exactly that this was definitely the way that I started in this hobby. For sure, playing with the cars, playing with play sets, using my imagination, and etc. The second part to this phase is eventually, for the first time, you're going to get money. And this could be from doing chores, it could just be gift money or whatever, right? And at this time, you're going to be taken to the store and you're going to pick a car for your collection. This is the first time that you're going to be actually curating part of your collection, actually choosing what's going to be in your collection in general, right? These early decisions are going to make a big impact to what you're going to focus on much later on in your collecting life, believe it or not. These are the things that you're going to have nostalgia for. When you make these decisions, you're making the jump from being someone who plays with Hot Wheels to now you are a Hot Wheels collector in a way, right? You're still using them, you're still playing with them and such, but you're starting to choose your own cars and you're starting to develop your own taste in die-cast cars. Now, Hot Wheels is going to fight with many other different hobbies, but if it becomes either your main hobby or it becomes something that's at least very important, and you will become a little bit more Hot Wheels obsessed. Hot Wheels won't become like another toy. It will become more so your main thing, right? So you're gonna have more Hot Wheels or more die-cast cars and other toys that you have in your home. You might have posters on your wall now. You might be watching, different Hot Wheels media, whether if you're growing up nowadays, maybe on YouTube or on Netflix, or if you're growing up back in the day, there might have been an animated series, that you were watching back then. You might be reading magazines, books, having coloring books that you're coloring your favorite Hot Wheels in and such, right? You might be also really into cars themselves. You might have a bunch of posters of different cars on your wall, and then the Hot Wheels is just kind of an extension of that. So all types of different things. You become Hot Wheels obsessed as a kid or car obsessed as a kid, and this will, take you through your childhood, and it will become the most identifiable hobby of yours as a kid. Now from here, there's two paths a person might go on, and this will determine if they stay in the hobby short term or not. So those two paths are either A, you leave the hobby, or B, you stay in the hobby and you kind of take another direction. So due to kind of like just society pressures and such, to grow up, or, hey, this stuff is childish, or maybe you have just different interests in life, a lot of people end up leaving the hobby. And I would say they start leaving the hobby around between 9 and 12 years old. They will end up leaving and they will not stay. And some of these people will never come back. These will be the type of people saying, oh, I had Hot Wheels as a kid, I played with them as a kid, but they never really got back into the hobby, right? So this is kind of the time where they might deter away. Some of these people might come back, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but these people leave and they usually stay out of the hobby for the rest of their juvenile life. The other path is the people that stay in the hobby, but usually they pivot. Instead of playing with Hot Wheels tracks, instead of having, all the cars open and playing around with them all the time, a lot of the time they step into the collector mold. And this was me around this time as well. They will have the first time where they end up leaving a Hot Wheels car in the package. That was something as a kid that would never happen, pretty much. But now they are displaying them in the package. They might have them up on their wall. They might have them up in their closet or something like this. They might even have them in totes, right? But they might not be opening everything. Also, in terms of your collection, most of the collection is now going to be curated by you. You're going to be choosing the cars that come into your collection, because the likelihood of you getting die-cast cars gifted to you now that you're older definitely goes down quite a bit, right? You also don't have as many friends that are going to be in the hobby, and perhaps you will also not be speaking about the fact that you're in the hobby in the first place. You won't be talking about it with your friends or sharing it, because your friends might think that you haven't grown up and that you're still a kid, right? It's almost like the sort of feeling that, you still believe in Santa Claus in a way, right? It's that sort of feeling that people might have towards you. So you might be collecting more kind of underground. You're definitely gonna have other kids that might come to your house and saying, you still have those, you still play with those, this and that, right? But that comes with the territory of staying in the hobby, especially at that preteen and teenage age. And then also, when you go and you buy Hot Wheels, if you have a sibling, you are certainly going to say, if somebody asks you, do you collect Hot Wheels? You're gonna say, no, this is a gift for my brother, my cousin, my sister, whoever, right? My younger family member. That will happen almost all the time. However, during this phase, as I said, because you're going to become more of a collector, your focus shifts. So for example, at this time, I started watching like case openings and understood what a Hot Wheels case was. Also, you might watch videos that are more Hot Wheels openings, unboxing videos, or hunting videos, things like this, right? That are more relevant to kind of what you're going through as a collector at that time. And if you are opening them, you might get cases like these jammer cases right here, to keep your Hot Wheels cars in better condition than the ones from your childhood. Now, those two paths are gonna come back together right here, as some of those people who left the hobby are going to circle back into the hobby, usually in their young adulthood, but it could be later in life, right? So these people here, maybe it's because that they're really interested in cars. Maybe they've had this, rush of nostalgia that's come back to them. Or maybe they've seen people on social media nowadays who are really interested in collecting cars again. And that's gotten them to want to come back to the hobby. So usually these people are just rushing almost to get back into the hobby here. So what they'll do is they'll buy almost everything in the stores. They're gonna buy all the licensed cars especially. They're gonna have bags of licensed cars in their room. They might have them in the corner. They'll just have carted Hot Wheels just full of them, right? And they're just buying anything and everything that they recognize. These people are the people that unfortunately I feel like get duped the most at Hot Wheels flea markets, conventions, or on the secondary market. They're very naive and they're not really knowledgeable on the history of Hot Wheels, what a Hot Wheels is worth and such. So these guys are like the car guys in the hobby. If you guys have seen my previous video, they're like the 5 types of Hot Wheels collectors. That right there is typically the car guy that will be in this mold here. Now, the people though that stayed in the hobby, they might have this phase as well. I know I certainly did when I was in my later teenage years, where you get a bit of money and now you're gonna be buying way more Hot Wheels. So the same sort of kind of result will happen where you're gonna eventually accumulate too many Hot Wheels. Either this is gonna come from a phase of you getting back into the hobby, or if you were in the hobby, you have access to money that you didn't have before, and then your collection is going to multiply multiple times over. You're gonna see the largest growth in terms of where you are at, in terms of the number of cars in your collection to the maximum amount of cars that are gonna be in your collection right here. I think at this time, this is where you're gonna see the biggest growth. One other thing to point out, this phase is usually where a scalper mindset could happen. This could be where somebody eventually they dive back into the hobby and then they notice that there's money to be made here, and then eventually they slowly kind of turn into a scalper. Or it's somebody who's been in the hobby a long time and understands that there is money to be made here, and they're gonna possibly make the choice to become a scalper. So this is usually where scalpers are born, in this phase of the Hot Wheels collecting life cycle. Now, eventually someone's gonna have a realization, and I call this realization the why the hell do I have this many Hot Wheels realization. And this will happen where you start just to care a bit less about the cars that you're bringing in. Maybe you're exhausted of going to the stores all the time and having to peg hunt on a weekly basis or a multiple time per week basis. And you're just kind of to a point where like, I really like the hobby. I want to keep these cars right here in my collection, and the rest of them I just don't really care about. So eventually you'll do like a first cleaning. I remember at my peak, I had about 7,500 Hot Wheels cars. I had a whole closet that was full of Hot Wheels cars, which most of them I did not care about, right? And I was like, you know what? It's time to downsize. And that first cut that I did between 2 sessions of cutting Hot Wheels, I got rid of over 2,100 die-cast cars. Think about it, 2,100 cars I got rid of out of my collection. And this might happen to you. Now, this realization also might be a realization that these people who've gotten back into the hobby might actually end up even leaving the hobby entirely at this stage right here, and they might decide to just sell their whole collection. So after this realization happens, your mindset changes. You go for a quality over quantity mindset. And in my eyes, you become a bit more of a curator rather than a collector. So like right now, I would say I'm more of a curator because now I have a focus of more of what I'm interested in and the cars that I like and the cars that I want to add into my collection. You can kind of treat your collection almost as like a museum, and all your cars are kind of individual art pieces that you carefully have to select, and they all kind of have to tie together in a certain way, whatever way in your brain that makes sense, I guess you could say, but they all have to tie together in a certain way, right? and you're gonna start feeling no emotions to certain cars. Cars that you would have bought before will never come into your collection ever again. And now you're at a stage, in my opinion, that's the most enjoyable stage, where you're really enjoying the hobby for what it is. You're not just buying in quantity to have the most Hot Wheels cars in your collection. You also are probably not buying into all the hype that Mattel or other creators are trying to push to you. You're very secure in your relationship with this hobby right here. Also, you probably are gonna be more comfortable with just kind of moving off of certain parts of your collection over time, right? You're just gonna feel like, hey, this part of my collection, it fit for a certain phase in my collecting life, but I'm over that phase now, and I'm okay with just getting rid of those cars at this point. You might look at a car, for example, and say, hey, you know, if I moved or if I was downsizing my collection, I probably wouldn't keep this car in my collection, but I'm not ready to get rid of it just now, right? But it might take you 6 months, it might take you a year or whatever, but eventually when you look at a car and you say, hey, I'm probably not gonna keep that car in my collection, eventually that car will go. The cars that will end up staying in your collection, you will never have a second thought about, likely, about if they're gonna stay in my collection or not. You're gonna have a really nice, tight collection at this point, and you could stay in this phase of collecting for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, literally up until death almost. But eventually what will happen is what I like to call the final liquidation. And this either comes from just you as a human being. You might be ending your time here on this world, and it might be time to start selling off, passing down, gifting parts of your collection to other people. And your collection will inevitably, likely outlive you. These pieces of plastic and metal, they will be around longer on this earth than we are. And that's just a realization that you'll just have to come to grips with. Or this realization of the final liquidation, again, could happen at an earlier stage where someone might want to exit out of the hobby, either because of monetary reasons or just going and moving on to a different phase in life. I think it's very important for somebody to formally go through this phase, especially because if this collection is still together, but you're not there to be overseeing it, who knows what will happen to this collection right here. It's never gonna have that proper closure. Your collector life will never have that proper closure if you don't go through the final liquidation phase. So, you know, certainly if there's any of you guys that are in that phase right now, I'd love to know down in the comment section below how you've gotten to that point and, you know, what is kind of going through your mind during this time in your collecting life and what actions you're taking, because it's definitely, I think, a necessary part of collecting Hot Wheels, but it's not an easy realization maybe to come to. That in short is, in my opinion, the typical Hot Wheels collector life cycle. Now, certainly it's not perfect, right? Some people will constantly grow their collection. They'll never get rid of anything. They'll just have a collection that keeps growing and growing and growing, and they'll have to try to find more space for it, and it will just be this huge collection that they end up with at the end of their life. But I think most people go through this typical life cycle that you have here, right? And I would say for those people that are a little bit earlier on in their collector journey, that maybe you guys want to try to get to the curation stage of your collector life sooner. And the sooner that you can do that, the happier you're gonna be, the more excited you're gonna be about being in this hobby, the more enjoyable conversations that you'll have to have with other people that are in this hobby. And just, you're gonna enjoy your collection a lot more because every single model is gonna count and you're gonna enjoy everything that you have. So that, in essence though, is the typical Hot Wheels collector life cycle. As I said, down in the comment section below, let me know what stage are you in and how long have you been in that stage, and what are your future plans for your Hot Wheels collecting life, and what are your goals? Anyways, thank you guys so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys all later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.